With these 30 miles, Iran has the power to hold the world hostage. The Strait of Hormuz is the single most critical artery of the global energy market. But here's the twist. Iran simply decided to seal it off because of the war, demanding anyone who wishes to pass to pay a toll, and that actually exposed a scary reality. The mullahs in Tehran have been allowed to decide whether or not they starve and throw the lights off on hundreds of millions of people with a snap of the finger. Now Trump is making a simple demand. Either everyone passes or nobody passes, and that may actually have much more to do with US-China competition than Iran itself. With a ceasefire on the brink of collapse, where is this all going, and why does it all matter? Stay tuned. Hello, this is Or Yissachar, and you are watching Briefly by Underscore. Before we continue, please consider hitting the subscribe button down below. This really helps us create much more amazing content for you guys. So, with roughly 1/5 of the world energy consumption flowing through it, the Strait of Hormuz really did become front and center in the whole debate around the Iran war. And this actually may have much more to do with the US dollar versus yuan than Jerusalem versus Tehran. Let me explain. Iran is fully aware of the immense extortion power that the grace of geography has given it. Thanks to its location right on the Persian Gulf, Iran and its mullahs have the power to completely seal off passage between the providers in the Arab Peninsula. That would be Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Bahrain, and the consumers all around the world. And as you've probably heard, they've been using this leverage unapologetically. The Strait of Hormuz is essentially a vital choke point, a narrow passage just 30 miles wide that connects the Persian Gulf with the high seas. You know, it's just the flow of good from the Persian Gulf onto the Indian Ocean, the Arab Sea, maybe onto the Red Sea and onto Europe. And so the UN clause, what they call the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, ensures what it calls transit passage, basically the right to free passage. That basically you have the right to freely pass through critical lifelines in the high seas, even if they fall under the territorial waters of a certain country, in that case, Iran. It's considered to be common practice, what they call customary international law. Basically, that's the common stuff that everyone follows because it's common sense. Now, believe it or not, the mere impressive words on paper do not guarantee safe passage. America does. And so when the US and Israel started pounding Iran's nuclear program, ballistic missiles program, Iran went berserk. It started, throwing missiles, launching missiles and drones anywhere in the region, including on their Arab neighbors, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Bahrain, Qatar, and yes, even on US bases in the region, and for the first time in history, British bases, including the one in Cyprus. You heard me correctly, on European soil. So they've been attacking civilian infrastructure, Israeli oil refinery plants, would be Saudi oil refinery plants, would be hotels in Dubai or the airport over there. And they did something else to target civilian infrastructure. The regime's state media announced that the Strait of Hormuz from now on is closed. So basically any vessel that attempts to pass there risks a direct hit by an Iranian missile, drone, mine. So just to be clear, they don't have the right to do that. Even if they feel attacked, even if they feel like the US-Israeli war against them is unjustified, and I've plenty of things to say about that, but they don't have the right to block safe passage. Why does it matter? Well, as I said, roughly 1/5 of the world's energy consumption flows through the straits. For example, China, 35% of its oil consumption flows through the straits. That would be suppliers in the Arab Peninsula that are sending out goods to China. 28% of its LNG supply. India, South Korea, they're all dependent on it. Even Europe, to a certain extent. The fertilizers in Europe are largely dependent on exports that flow through the Strait of Hormuz. Closing this tap can mean a spike in oil prices and spike in all prices because, as you know, everything stems from energy. That can also cause actually a fertilizer shock, basically driving up prices all across the board. Essentially, the world has shrugged as Iran has amassed an amazing power, an amazing blackmail chip, the hand of the valve that basically arbitrates whether or not it starves or turns the light off on hundreds of millions of people. That's basically what's going on here. Now, Iran has announced the strait is closed. Basically, it's a war zone. The Iranian Navy is decimated, as Trump put it. But they can target ships. So, as I said, it's only 30 miles wide. Any Iranian missile can hit a ship, theoretically. They can disperse mines all over the place. Any small drone by a negligible squadron of people, it doesn't have to be an all out state effort, can disrupt the market. And as you know, this whole thing works like a stock market, right? It works on feel, the mood music. So any random missile can spark fear. And so that random missile, the random, can turn into ransom. But Iran has also floated the idea, if I can borrow that term, to demand toll payment. Now, we learned that the Iranian Foreign Ministry, the Iranian Foreign Minister Arakchi, said that 5 countries would be allowed to pass through the Strait of Hormuz, despite Iran's announcement that the strait is closed. That would be China, Iran, Bangladesh, Russia, of course, and Iraq. Now, you understand what's going on here. These are their main trading partners, and they want the money. And according to reports, they're going to demand they started increasingly export oil with yuan, not dollar. That is really China's interest here. This is really what we're watching here is the litmus test, the East-West cleavage, the battle over world domination. Whose currency is stronger? Whose coalition can rule the world? Now, against all rules, Iran has just opened the door to negotiate over who can pass there, who can't. And what it means is that if they have the power to decide who passes, they also have the power to decide who doesn't pass. The UK, for example, is urging ships not to pay that toll because obviously understand what's going on here. You've just opened the door to the shaking of the global order's foundations. Imagine now if Spain has closed the Strait of Gibraltar, or you remember in the first days of the Trump presidency, there's been a lot of talk about the Panama Canal. So this is really a battle not just about Iran itself, but the way the world works. So President Trump won't have it. He said that he imposed a blockade now over the Iranian military. He said, I've also instructed our Navy to seek and interdict every vessel in international waters that has paid a toll to Iran. No one who pays an illegal toll will have safe passage on the high seas. That's Trump. Now, blockades have been used in the past between belligerents in war, and as we know, the U.S. Navy is now trying to remove those mines with reconnaissance technology on vessels. Now, just so you understand, Trump is acting on principle here. He won't have it. He won't open that door for Iran to arbitrate who can pass, who gets to pass, and who cannot pass. Otherwise, everyone is going to do that, and the world will be in disarray. So Trump, I would proclaim, is actually not the chaos agent here. He's the one who tries to ensure that Iran does not violate the rules-based international order, despite I know there are many claims otherwise. Now, the optimistic reaction to all this might be creativity. We can just seize the opportunity to reverse course and change things for the better. Maybe lower one's dependence on the Strait of Hormuz, phase out of Hormuz, or lower one's what they call Hormuz exposure. Now, instead, Europe rushes to demand back to business as usual, back to square one, de-escalate, while condemning, of course, Israel and the US for causing all this, and not Iran for illegally demanding to close the Strait of Hormuz or even demanding toll payment. Now, to be fair, Europe has also demanded Iran to reopen the straits. But back to square one isn't good enough, isn't it? The situation has not been good before. That would be back in a situation when Iran has extortion power over the world. Now, President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, she said, there's one clear lesson from all this. We are paying a high price for our over-dependence. Not on the willpower of the Iranian mullahs, no, the over-dependence on fossil fuels. We need to scale up the homegrown reliable energy. That would be green, nuclear energy, to modernize the infrastructure, to electrify the infrastructure. I'm not against that. That is actually a good trajectory, like increase one's self-reliance. But that's just part of it. You can phase out of fossil fuels toward renewable energies, nuclear energy. That is fine. We can have that debate as long as you have plan B. But that is not all of the story. a big part of it is Europe is letting Iran the power of extortion. And instead of demanding Iran to reopen the straits, yes, they have done it, but mostly they've been focused on condemning Israel and the United States for saving the world from Iran's nuclear plant and nuclear program, and demanding to de-escalate, even urging to de-escalate. Now, the one question is this: it's not why the U.S. and Israel attacked Iran. We can talk about it all day. They already attacked it last year to really halt its nuclear program, and Iran did not close the strait. Much more importantly, can the world let a regime such as Iran, controlled by fanatic theocratic mullahs, to keep its hands on the valve? And even the UN rejected that notion that Iran can demand toll payment. And the UN has not exactly been Trump and Israel's biggest fan. So instead of turning on the US and Israel, on saving the world, apparently, from the Iranian nuclear program, that Iran has been reviving its nuclear program, that has been amassing a massive amount of ballistic missiles and drones, and while amassing an amazing amount of power to block the straits. How about we actually use this moment to reduce one's Hormuz exposure? How about we present a 5-year plan to phase out of Hormuz? For example, pave train tracks from all the major oil refineries and energy stations around the Arab Peninsula in Saudi Arabia and the UAE and Bahrain, Qatar, either north through Israel onto Europe or through Turkey onto Europe, or south toward the Indian Ocean or the Red Sea. How about you don't scramble to figure out a response while pointing the finger at your allies, while appeasing an aggressive regime like Iran? How about you actually seize the moment to improve square one? Appeasement is not the way to improve things. Creativity is. Thank you for watching Briefly by Underscore, and as always, please remember to like, share, and subscribe down below to be the first to watch the next episode.